I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry.
Hi, everybody. This is Apologies Accepted, the podcast. And I'm not Theo.
And I'm not Juliet yet.
And the burning question on everyone's minds this week is, what's shaking bacon?
I wish I could tell you anything had happened that was cool, or it's like zero. Totally zero.
You sound like me this week.
Pardon?
You sound like me this week. I'm usually the one saying I'm not doing anything.
I made bread on Friday in the middle of my workday.
Very good.
Took little breaks to make bread. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And let's see. That's it. So yippee, hooray for me. No, I did, however, resolve an issue that everybody must face in their life. And I resolved it for me. I didn't resolve it for everybody else.
Oh, too bad.
And no one's allowed to steal this idea. I was talking to a friend about burial plots through Long Complicated Story, which I shared with you pre-show. It's a secret, everybody. You can't know. And the question kind of came up, like, what do you want to do with your remains after you die? Where do you want to be buried? Where do you want to be sprinkled? How do you want blah, 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 blah?
Right.
And, like, I've got some answers and whatever. I've thought about it, but I haven't really thought about it because the burial's not for me. I will be dead. The burial will be for the people who are around me, and yippee. So last night when I was talking with James, it came up and he said, you probably want to be turned into a statue and handed out like a Pulitzer Prize. And that's exactly what I want now. I want my ashes.
Is it possible?
To be, well, yes, here's how it will go, right? My ashes will be mixed in with molten gold. Lots of it.
Wow.
And then these little statues will be made.
Yeah.
Right? And this is for other people to worry about. How does it happen?
How it gets done.
Yeah.
How it gets paid for. Yeah, sure.
And who is noble enough to receive a Theo? Right. And that's the name of the prize and the statue and everything.
That's awesome.
And once a year, just like the Pulitzer Prize, one person on the planet is awarded the Theo.
Wow.
Right? And for what achievement? I mean, outside of like being pretty and humble and smart and nice.
Right.
And pretty, again, if I haven't said that twice, it's very important the pretty part be there.
Sure.
So whoever that lucky recipient is will get a Theo, right?
Wow.
And there should just be like, I think 1 million statues printed out so that way.
So it
for
goes on
1
forever.
year for 1 million years. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Problem fucking solved.
Love it.
I'm happy, right? So that's what I'm doing for the world with my life. And future Theo recipients, you are welcome. So yeah, that's how little I had going on in my life this week. Like my watermelon grew a foot. My watermelon vine grew 1 foot. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yep. Like in a week and a half. And so,
that's awesome.
It grew a lot. It's going to really take over the backyard, I think.
Yeah, probably.
And I can't wait. I really.
I hope you get to eat some of those watermelons because that's going to be awesome.
You know, the possum's going to come and eat them before I ever get to them.
Yeah. All sorts of wildlife.
But that's all that's shaken over here for bacon this week. What is shaken bacon?
Well, I'm going to New York in June. I have originally been planning to go to New York in October with my husband to see. Why are we going? I can't remember now why we're going. For the hell of it, I guess, just to go. We're going to go to the Museum of Modern Art and a bunch of museums, but I think it was just going to be a museum trip. So I'm still going in October with my husband, but I'm now also going in June with my cousin to see an exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum. And there's one thing I can say about this week's episode, and it's that it brought me to to know about this exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum, because somehow in all my linking and reading around and surfing the net for Tom Sachs information, I found out about this exhibit, and now I'm going to go see it. So I'm totally excited. It is an exhibit for the 50th anniversary of Picasso's death, which is this year, and it's curated by Hannah Gadsby, who you may not know her. She's a comedian, and I've seen her live.
I know Hannah. You've seen her live?
Yeah, she was really good.
I love her. She's got a new special out on Netflix.
Does she? I'm going to have to watch it. So she curated this exhibit because she, in one of her recent, in her Nanette show, she talked about Picasso. And so one of the curators at the Brooklyn Museum invited her to come and curate an exhibit for the 50th anniversary of Picasso's death. So I think it's going to be fascinating. And we're also going to see another exhibit at the Guggenheim, which is more of a straight Picasso exhibit for the anniversary of his death. So I think it'll be an interesting... I'm only going to be there for like a day because I'm going on Friday and coming back on Monday. But on Saturday, Heather and I are going to go see the exhibit and have dinner, and that's probably about all we'll have time to do. But I think it'll be fun.
It sounds so great. I've already gone on that trip in my mind, and I had a fantastic time, and I know you will too.
So that's my bacon for this week. That's what I'm going to be doing. I haven't done much recently or this week. I did go to the UPS store, which was very exciting, to return some Amazon stuff that I bought that didn't fit. And I went to pick up my dog's medicine at the vet, and that's really all I've done this week. So there you go.
Going to the UPS store takes a lot. That is a major amount of time and effort. So that's a whole week's worth of energy right there.
I was proud of myself.
I am proud of you.
Thank you. So our story today, as I mentioned, is about Tom Sachs, who is a real fucking piece of work. So I have a particular animosity towards artists who so I've heard them called recently in the course of researching this article or this podcast episode. I've heard these people called startists. So somebody
fun.
Yeah, somebody like Jeff Koons, maybe, or even maybe Andy Warhol, I suppose you could call a startist.
Great example.
Yeah, but I think the real definition of it is somebody who's more of a star than an artist, and Tom Sachs totally fits into that category, in my opinion.
I have never heard of him.
Tom Sachs?
Yeah, never heard of him. Not until
I
you
had
mentioned
never heard
him.
of him before I heard that he had done this apology, and I thought, well, that could be interesting. And then I started researching him, and I went down like a 6-hour rabbit hole, reading articles about him and about what he does and all the stuff we'll talk about in this episode. So I have a ton of information. It might be a slightly longer podcast episode than usual. I apologize if it is, and you guys have places to go, but you can always pause and come back.
Or you just put your AirPods in and go do the things you need to do.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
Put your headphones on like me so nobody will talk to you because you look unapproachable. So Tom Sachs is a contemporary startist from New York whose first public work in 1994. Okay, so to set the scene for this public work, he went to a bunch of, he came from a rich family. He went to a bunch of really ritzy schools, and I forget where he went to college, but he went somewhere. And after that, he did a bunch of little jobs like here and there. And one of the jobs he did was as a Barney's window dresser. So I think he started out on the technical side by building structures to put in the windows, and somehow he got invited to create an exhibit or a window scene for the Barney's window, and it was Christmas time, so the scene that he put together was a scene in which Jesus was played by Hello Kitty, and all the wise men were played by Bart Simpson figures. The Holy Mary, whatever, was also played by Hello Kitty in a Chanel lingerie outfit. And if you are on the Zoom call, which Theo is, you can see behind me a picture. I think this is a recreation of the very exhibit itself, which is hideously ugly, in my opinion. But that's why he's a star artist. Go ahead. Don't love the exhibit. It is interesting that, like, oh, look, it's Bart Simpson with Hello Kitty. What are we saying about pop culture and blah, 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 right? And that's the kind of bullshit you can get away with in New York. This wouldn't fly anywhere outside of intellectual, air quotes around, Well,
circle.
it's funny you should say that because, well, first I want to note that you can't see it in the picture, but instead of a star over the manger, there is a McDonald's logo. So anyway, yes, consumer culture absolutely is being discussed in this, or alluded to. I don't want to say criticized because we'll get there.
Right. But the thing about it is that third graders could have put this together.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I say that, I think I often think that about art, like I could have done that, and then of course the response is, but you didn't. So true,
Fair.
I didn't, and I'm kind of proud that I didn't. Thank you.
I did because I knew it was stupid.
So Catholic organizations were understandably infuriated, and the window was taken down, and the CEO or whatever took
Are you
blame.
fucking kidding?
No, it's true. It's true. And Sachs' interest in consumerism and branding continued. He did things like he took representations of contemporary objects like guns and hand grenades and wrapped them in high fashion packaging like from Hermes or Tiffany. He also created items like a McDonald's Happy Meal covered in the Prada logo, a Chanel guillotine, and a Prada toilet. And this all sounds very interesting, but if you look at these things, they're just, well, the Happy Meal and the Prada logo was actually pretty well done, I thought. But the Chanel guillotine was just like somebody cobbled together a guillotine and wrote Chanel on it. So I wasn't all that impressed with that. And a Prada toilet, I mean, don't even ask me about that one.
Tell me about the Prada toilet. What is it? No, I'm totally kidding.
A gallery owner was arrested in 1999 when she hosted one of Sachs' works, which was an Alvar Aalto vase containing live ammunition, which customers were invited to take. So he's not very smart. Yeah.
The look on my face, which no one can see, it's perfect for radio.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Nope.
All right, that's great. I mean, why not have a baby?
Legal? I guess it's not legal, and that's why the gallery owner was arrested.
I mean, I'm just going to say dumb.
Totally.
You're lucky nobody used one of those bullets to murder somebody else.
Yeah. I wonder if it got as far as people actually taking the ammunition. So anyway, around this time, Sachs developed an interest, which was still continues, a long-abiding interest in the space program. And his exhibit called Sony Outsider in 1998 opened at Site Santa Fe in New Mexico. This was a sculpture that was on the outside of a full-scale model of the atomic bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki. And inside was a capsule hotel-like room upholstered Sony style in white leather. On Saturdays, it was supposed to be inhabited by a young Asian woman, or as the artist statement said, a teenage Japanese sex kitten.
Raised eyebrows do not even.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, this was a branching out in Sachs' production methods from handmade art into outsourced fabrication. So he had it made by others in a factory, I guess. He called it a huge failure himself because of its expense, but also because critics noted that it looked and was machine-made. So as a result of this criticism, Sachs moved into the creation of bricolage, which, according to Sachs, a bricoleur is one who hobbles together functional contraptions out of already given or collected materials, which he retools and resignifies into new objects with novel uses. This was a way for Sachs to make his work more identifiable as his own rather than mere copies of existing items. He commented at the time, and this is interesting for some things we'll be talking about in a few minutes. He said, "We have our system of making things out of certain materials and of showing the scars of our labor and the history of our efforts. We have your way, my way, and the right way, and I must insist everything is done my way, even if it takes longer." So that might give you a little bit of an idea of the character of this man, but we'll flesh that out a little bit as we go.
Okay, because so far, all right, that me too. I'm that way sometimes.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
Do things my way. That vase goes right there on that spot on that table and nowhere else.
And that's where it goes.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Me too. I admit. In a 2002 collaboration with the Jewish Museum, Sachs, who is Jewish, made a pop-up concentration camp out of a Prada hat box, telling the New York Times Magazine that fashion was similar to fascism because it was about the, quote, loss of identity. So he's not very smart.
They both start with F.
They sound similar. Yeah. He's not very smart, in my opinion. I did not see I meant to look up a picture of that concentration camp out of the Prada hat box. But one, I didn't want to see it really, and two, I didn't want to see it, so I didn't look it up. Then in 2007, continuation of his interest in the space program, he built a one-to-one model of the Apollo lunar module, also a mission control with 29 closed-circuit video monitors, and he put 2 female astronauts in handmade Tyvek spacesuits. The lunar excursion model was built full-scale, but had many modifications, including a fully stocked bar and a library. And I believe they actually sort of played out the lunar landing. And after their first step, they used his handmade shotguns, which actually worked, to, quote, patrol the surface before planting a flag and taking rock samples by drilling into the gallery floor. He continues work on Space Program 2.0 Mars, which is currently exhibited in Germany.
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. He has been making these, like, sort of not fake guns, but real guns that work. He's been making them for a long time. Like when he was younger, he and his I guess students or whatever would make a bunch of fake guns and take them to the New York, the gun turn-in. You know, what do they call those things?
Oh, collection. We get money for your guns.
Take the money for your guns, and get like $300 for these things that they had made. So
that's
I don't know if they
kind of
considered that art or just questionable bullshit to get money. In 2008 and 2009, Sachs' bronze collection was shown in Aspen, Colorado, and at the Trocadero in Paris. This collection featured large white bronze casts of foam core Hello Kitty and Miffy foam core sculptures, unpainted casts of battery towers, a skateboarding half-pipe, and Le Corbusier's lamps were also shown. So here he is again, making recreations of things that already exist. And I presume that the bricolage makes it his own, although I have not seen these exhibits to see how identifiably Sachs they are. I have my doubts. And now we get into a little bit more about how he treats people and his own character. In a 2010 film used for training prospective workers in his studio, and that was also required viewing for people who visited the studio, including journalists, his workers were trained to adhere to a strict set of codes or systems. In the film, Sachs compares himself to the tyrannical Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, narrating how Hartman teaches his lieutenants to adhere to the system of production already in place over a clip of the movie. He said, "Arbitrary decision-making and personal inventiveness are discouraged." And this is pointed at people who are going to work for him. So he's saying, don't make decisions and don't be inventive. You're working in the art field, but don't be creative. In a follow-up video, he even displays his temper by throwing a typewriter through a wall into a room where it hits someone. Detailed manuals are also provided to new hires, which contain a poem including the line, "Happiness lies in reading Tom's moods." Sachs said in an interview with GQ that, quote, "This place is a cult, and I mean that in the scariest, most Manson family kind of way, in that we're totally committed to this way of life." So he hands out these studio manuals to his staff upon employment, and they include guidelines such as avoiding things that make Tom mad, or how to pay a fine to a shrine called Leatherface, which is modeled after the serial killer from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if they make any mistakes. That's kind of amusing, but kind of weird.
We've created a world that's all about us, and it's everything us, right? And on one hand, I get you work for me. I'm the artist. My art does not need your artistic improvements. So it puts the lotion in the basket. That's your job. You just you do what you're told, and that's it. I get that, right? There are different ways to communicate that message where it might be nicer, but
I suppose it's not unreasonable to expect that if you're an artist hiring people to work on your art, you want it done the way you want it done because it's your art. But yes, making videos and manuals and
that's where it starts to get extreme. Right. I love that people had to watch the video. To like come visit the studio. Hi, Tom. I'd love to meet with you Monday. Oh, great. Please watch this video first. Yeah,
exactly. And this was like in 2000 something, and I don't know if Did we have YouTube in 2000 something? I guess we did.
Probably.
So they didn't have to get sent it, or they didn't have to sit there. I'm just imagining like a journalist coming to interview him and saying, "Here, sit down in front of this VCR and watch this video that I made before I'll talk to you." So let's see. So he has described himself in the past as proudly Jewish. At the same time, he had a first aid kit in the studio's kitchen that was deliberately manipulated to resemble a swastika in what he called an attempt to subvert and reclaim this painful part of Jewish history.
Please.
Right? However, he frequently called his office the Eagle's Nest, which referred to Hitler's Kelstein house. So he's questionable. And women also had kind of a hard time with Tom Sachs, or have kind of a hard time with Tom Sachs. Several women who previously worked at the studio reported that he openly spoke about the porn he watched and the type of women that he's into, even attending Zoom meetings with Nike in just his underwear. And I read that one of the women that was working on that Nike collaboration asked to be taken off of it because of that, because of the time that he was in the Zoom meeting with his in his underwear.
In his underwear?
Yes. Employees have also described being required to go through pictures on Sachs' computers, which include nude photos of himself and his wife, Sarah Hoover. And there was vintage porn on the studio walls, and the storage room in the basement was called the rape room until Sachs changed it to the consent room in 2016. And all I have to say to that is fuck you, Tom Sachs.
I mean, I'll say this, right? We've both worked retail.
Yeah.
And in retail, your little group of coworkers, you have your inside jokes, and you know, it's not so much that you become a cult or whatever, but there's a group cohesion thing happening, right?
Yeah.
And so I do get calling different rooms different things, and
Sure.
I can even see where I might have not. I probably would have called a basement something like that, right?
Really?
The murder house or the rape room, right? Maybe. So, but it is in poor taste. I get that the one article that I read to prepare for this, I get that was, he opened a studio in a really challenging part of New York, and I want to say it was Soho in the 90s, but I'm not sure which area now, and that it was just such a crime-ridden area, and the basement was dark and scary. I don't think rape room would probably been the first thing that came to mind for me.
No.
The dungeon or whatever, maybe.
Yeah.
So poor choice of words, but I do get that environment, and I do get that kind of mindset. So, but you know, the thing is, it's not just the one thing, right? It's all of the one things combined.
Exactly. It's the context of the thing. Yeah, and so it's funny that you mentioned the sort of group cohesiveness that comes when you work together, because he seems to have taken it to somewhat of an extreme. One studio assistant remembers traveling with him to an exhibition overseas where in front of a group of gallerists, he said to her, "This is a cult. If you want to leave, we don't want you. There's 1 million of you." And once, after he was annoyed on a Zoom call, he yelled, "I don't care if she dies. There's 1 million of her and only one of me."
I mean, somebody's just been believing too much of his own press.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, and what has he done? I mean, what has he done that's so great? I don't see it.
Well, apparently Nike saw it because they're in collaboration with him.
Not
right?
anymore.
Oh, okay. That's news to me.
Yeah. In 2013, he exhibited a piece called Barbie Slave Ship at the Biennale de Lyon, laying naked white Barbies in a model slave ship with pink flags. So there's so many ways that is a bad idea. I won't go into any of them, but you just take my word for it if you don't already know. That is a bad idea, and I think that piece is still out there somewhere. In 2017, he worked with Nike, as you implied. He worked with Nike to release the Mars Yard sneaker, which was very popular. At the last minute before launch, though, Nike had to remove from the box the phrase "work like a slave." He had several Nike shoe releases, including one called General Purpose, I think. I get into this more a little bit later. But they had all been quite popular, and I think some of them are now, like the original Mars Yard sneaker you can get for like between $10,000 and $40,000.
What?
So they're collectible now.
Why?
You got me, man. I don't understand the whole sneaker world.
Me either, but 40,000, even 10,000, 1,000 for sneakers is too many monies.
Too many monies.
Yeah, too many monies.
Yeah, I think 200 for sneakers is too many monies. But even if it is, Tom Sachs, wow. So in 2023, writer and curator Emily Colucci wrote a post on her website, Filthy Dreams, titled, "I found it, the worst art job listing ever created." The article outlined a job posting in which a high-profile Artworld family sought a full-time executive and personal assistant dedicated to a simple goal: make life easier for the couple in every way possible. I wish I had one of those. The job required the candidate to be on call outside of normal working hours and laid out a long list of ridiculous tasks, including picking up clothing from high-end stores, serving as the point person for the couple's fleet of household staff, and managing, quote, dog systems and, quote, closet systems. On February 26th, the New York Times picked up the story and things spiraled from there. Commenters on Filthy Dreams speculated the employers were Sachs and his wife, a socialite, and former Gagosian gallery director Sarah Hoover, a hypothesis later also reported to ArtNet. Former employee Christie said, "The people who did the more low-level assistant jobs were constantly asked to do stuff for Sarah, his wife. They were technically supposed to be studio employees, but to work their way up the ladder, they had to do all these Sarah Hoover tasks." Sarah Hoover is a feminist who has publicly condemned the ethics of the art world for pretending to have progressive values while in reality reinforcing patriarchal structures and wealth inequality. She has written articles about the difficulties of motherhood, having suffered from postpartum depression. A book seems to be in the works, or has seemed to be in the works for some time now, about, according to her website, her experience with pregnancy, motherhood, the art world, and the oppressive aspects of patriarchy. Sarah Hoover has taught a course on art and feminism at Barnard called Art History of the Exploited Feminist Self. She has nannies, a housekeeper, and a private chef, along with possibly the previously mentioned assistant. I could talk about her for a while too, but
I mean, I'm jealous. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be a wealthy socialite who gets to talk about how hard life is.
Yeah. And her Instagram is her at all these parties wearing all these amazing dresses and being with all these famous people, and it's really something. It's something to see. So for her, it is interesting for her to participate in that world at the same time as she is basically oppressing other people who work for her husband. So the fact that she doesn't recognize that is really interesting.
Or she doesn't care. She recognizes it, but she benefits from it. And so, great.
But why be a feminist then? Why say you're a feminist if that's what you're going to do? I don't think that... Maybe she thinks feminism has something in it for her. I mean, I suppose it does. And, if you can be blind to the contradictions in your life, there are some ways you can get more by trying to be a feminist.
Oh, I mean, for sure. Cognitive dissonance, like my ears are ringing from all the, I don't even know what to say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I mean, people are hypocrites. People are hypocrites and turn a blind eye, and things are working for me and down with the man, but not too far down with the man because it's getting some benefits here.
And not me, not down with me.
No, I'm great. Man. I'm totally great. I care so much about everybody.
Yeah. In 2023, so this year, Curb reported on Sachs' misbehavior, sexism, bullying, and fostering a toxic workplace. Shortly after that report, ArtNet spoke to former and present Sachs employees who said that the artist pressured them to perform dehumanizing personal tasks for him and his wife, Sarah Hoover. Sachs required studio workers to observe bizarre rules, such as walking quietly, placing items at parallel and 90-degree angles, and adhering to a strict dietary and exercise routine which involved group workouts while wearing uniforms. He treated the men so much differently. What, did you say something?
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, the walking quietly, okay, fine. Maybe you live under the studio or what you're sensitive noise or whatever. Putting things at right angles and parallel. Okay, getting a little bit much there. But adhering to a strict diet, thanks. For $12 an hour or $15 an hour, no, you go fuck yourself real hard.
And they have to show up at the routine at the studio at like 7 a.m. 3 times a week to do this exercise routine. All of them together wearing the same uniform, which is bizarre.
It's very, I'll say, Japanese corporate culture.
Yeah.
You know, we work together, but
Yeah.
also we are a unit, and as a unit, we function outside of the work hours together, right? So we get
Right.
together and we do exercises together, and then we go drinking in the evening. Like you live your work, and
Yeah.
that's what he's doing.
It's true.
And I'll say he sounds like a real dick so far, but don't take these jobs, everybody.
Well, if you're a kid, basically they're all young. If you're a kid
Sure.
looking for a job in the art world, A, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
B, you let's just say you think Sachs is really talented. So you want to work for this guy. You may not be aware that it's going to turn out like this. It may only dawn on you after a few days. And you may not have an opportunity to work for someone else who you think is as talented as Sachs. So I'm not saying, that that's a good reason to keep the job, but I can see why people would want to keep the job under those circumstances.
I totally see why people would take this sort of a job, even knowing all of this, right? You'll make connections, you'll meet people
Right.
through him that you wouldn't ordinarily have an opportunity to meet. Maybe one of those connections is going to look at you and be like, you're a star, right?
Right.
And make you the famous,
Exactly.
wonderful person that you were always born to be.
Sure.
Great. And that system also exists in Hollywood, and
Yes.
it exists in the fashion world. And it exists in publishing, and it probably exists. I don't know. I'll bet you.
Everywhere.
I was going to say name the dumbest thing, and then I was like, horse breeding, but that's not
it does.
necessarily the dumbest thing, right?
Yeah.
But like, does it exist in retail? Maybe,
Maybe.
right?
If you wanted to work for a high end fashion place, probably does.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm starting off at McDonald's, but I am going to get that job at Victoria's Secret, and then I am going to end up in the House of Gucci,
Right.
bringing that registered, making that change.
Yeah. Getting that employee discount.
Well,
Yep.
let's not go crazy.
So let's see. A past employee told Hyperallergic that Sachs treated the men so much differently. The men had the potential to be his proteges. He didn't view the women that way. And Curb described a system of favoritism in which Sachs gave his preferred employees expensive gifts and free things to the ones that weren't so preferred, and constantly reminded his workers that they were replaceable. So Nike's gotten wind of all this and seems to be distancing themselves from Sachs, recently saying that they were not currently working with the artist or his studio, despite earlier reports of new Mars Yard 3.0 sneakers and new colorways of the popular general purpose shoe that were supposed to come out sometime this year. Past workers told Hyperallergic about how difficult it was to quit. It is like a true cult in that they make it really hard to leave, they said, citing manipulation and threats. One former studio manager told Curb, "It's almost as if he goes out of his way to sow discomfort and pawns it off as if he's a genius. It's like a ruse. So many people out there know that he's cruel, but the art world is tiny and no one gives a shit." Tom Sachs' studio has denied all negative reports.
I'll say the problem when you earn a lot of money, or you earn any money and recognition for something as forgettable as art, and sorry, Da Vinci, right? Sorry, Van Gogh. I know, right? But like, you will, that can be taken away from you in a hot second. The public mood shifts 1 millimeter to another direction, and nobody remembers your sneakers, whatever. So I get the anxiety around that. I can see the desperation around that as well. But I start to fall down at the dickishness. But again, Hollywood, the art world, press.
People are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
They're gonna treat you like shit when they have an opportunity.
Not at my company.
Not at your company, of
right,
course.
but other companies, definitely.
Yes. So that's what I've got, and I think that's all we've got. Except, should we move on to the apology?
Let's move on to the apology. I knew nothing about Tom Sachs. You sent me a text and you were like, "Hey, this guy," and I was like, "Wow, yeah, that does seem kind of problematic." But then, kind of also, not that I was on the fence, but then I was kind of on the fence because it was like, well, I can understand where he's coming from, right? I'm insecure because of the art world. Things are fickle. I listened to one podcast from one ex-employee who talked about just how, mean he was. But the stuff that she was saying, it was like, it doesn't sound that mean to me, right? It sounds very normalish for that world. If you're hired as somebody's personal assistant in Hollywood, they are going to shit on you all day long. You were going to have that job for 1 year and you're going to quit screaming because that's what happens to everybody. And they're never going to read your fucking script. They're never going to cast you in a movie. There'll be all these it's never going to happen, right?
And you won't get a reference. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you won't get a reference and they'll badmouth you all over town.
Yeah,
She ruined my leotards.
Horrible.
So, but I know too that people are drawn to those industries filled with hope and aspiration but then the more that I hear about Tom Sachs, the more I'm just like, oh, it kind of gets worse and worse and worse. And then it snowballs. It's a little bit of like, well, that's not so bad. Okay. That's expected. All right. Oh, wow. This is pretty nonstop with you. It's very it's the art world Nexium.
Yeah.
So
kind of.
let's hear. I'm sorry you all don't understand me.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear.
So after Nike announced that it would not move forward with his lucrative sneaker deal, the artist Tom Sachs apologized in a statement to the New York Times for his treatment of former staff members in his studio. And it was a handwritten note, and it was titled Update. It said, "These past few months have been a time of overdue reflection. It's been painful but vital. I deeply regret that anyone ever felt less than supported, safe, and fulfilled within my studio, but it's clear that some people did. As our business grew at a rapid pace and cultural norms progressed, we didn't take the necessary time to professionalize our operations. I wish I had prioritized this a decade ago. I am laser focused on it now. But to be clear, over my 30-year career, I have never harassed anyone or tried to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I am committed to building a studio culture that better aligns with the values that I explore and develop as an artist. My art and personal professional growth is my main focus." Tom Sachs. What do you think?
Okay. All right. So it does some work and that's great, but it's too little too late for me.
Yeah.
Tom, I still don't know who you are. So good for you. This only comes about because the world has pointed at him and said, you're bad and you're not living up to the values that you profess. And just taking one look at a photograph of him and his wife, it's very easy to see like, oh, you are a New York art couple. You're rich. You live in your own world. And you have no idea about reality at all.
Yep, you're right.
So, I mean, it's insincere. And this is one of those, I give it a 2.
That's fair.
It only came about because the Nike deal fell through.
Exactly.
Because he's, see you next Tuesday. And... so it's disingenuous. Let's see what happens, Tom. Let's see what happens to your culture.
Yeah, let's see how it changes. Let's see what changes you make.
Yeah.
So I looked at this from the aspect of our criteria. Was there an expression of regret? Yes, he says, I deeply regret. Okay, good. Good job, Tom. Was there an explanation of what went wrong? Well, sort of. He said, we didn't keep up with cultural norms, which is a cop-out.
Right. The culture changed.
Right. We just didn't keep up. Yeah, bullshit. Acknowledgement of responsibility, big old no. Declaration of repentance, no. Offer of repair, no. They didn't say they were going to do anything at all to help the people that they've harmed or change how they were going to change. And there was no request for forgiveness. So I actually give this a 1 out of 10.
But he is really sorry, and that's the point, right? This has impacted him.
Right.
You're not thinking about him and his needs and how sorry he is. So it should be a 10.
I wonder if the people in his studio got yelled at for this whole thing.
Well, they signed NDAs now.
They can't. I know they can't talk about it
Yeah,
openly.
the woman that worked for him in 2008 to 2009, she did not sign an NDA. She was interviewed on some podcast that was called like Artworld, and it definitely is like from the art world, right? And that probably doesn't make a lot of sense for listeners who don't think about the art world, but imagine the most boring PBS special you have ever seen in your life. And for our international listeners, imagine the most boring BBC, intellectually stuffy, I don't even know what to say, right? And times that times 10. But it's only talking about the intrinsic values that I had such a hard time listening to it. Regardless, the woman worked there for a year. That's the point of it, not how much I hate art podcasts. And she was like, all the things we just said. I took this job. I didn't know who he was, but I was an art history major, and finding a job in the art world was really hard. And I was not told that I had to work 24/7, but I would get a text message at 2:00 in the morning. And when I heard that, I was like, that's okay. I get text messages at 2, 3 in the morning. I turn my phone off. It's on silent. I'll get to that text message when I get to that. But I understand you feel compelled to answer that text message at 2 in the morning. Great. And the interviewer near the end said, and I think this is a crucial question. He said, so did you quit or were you fired? And it's like, yeah, were you fired, lady? Because maybe you have an axe to grind. Because again, everything she said sounded like that's normal assistant stuff in this horrible world of the art world and or horrible world in Hollywood, right? And she said, I quit and I didn't sign an NDA. And it's like, yeah, but also I'm not hearing a lot from you that sounds like, oh my God, that's outrageous. It wasn't until I started reading the articles and saw a little bit more. And for me, it's just the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Absolutely. It's painful. It's painful to see. And I'm curious to see. So she has a book coming out. I mentioned Sarah Hoover has a book coming out about motherhood and how motherhood is hard on women and all that sort of thing.
And a TV series based on the book.
A TV series supposedly based on it. I've been reading. That's been in the works for years now, so I don't know whether any of that's ever actually going to come out. But she did write an article in Vogue, I think it was, about her experience being a mother and her postpartum depression. And it was really well written, and it was, I would have been completely taken in if I hadn't read all this other stuff about her. So I think she really has a blind spot for her own behavior. What are you going to do? I mean, I suppose any of us could be guilty of the same thing. So
I'm sure. I mean, we all are to greater and lesser degree, much lesser degrees, right?
Right.
I get the point of sending an assistant over to, let's use a really fancy Hermes, right? To pick up your clothing that's on hold for you. And they've got $20,000 worth of, it's 2 scarves from Hermes for $20,000, right? And your assistant makes $26,000 a year, right? Should your assistant be going to pick that up for you? Aren't they going to feel horrible?
Right.
Yes, they are, right? But at the same time, I was going to say, but at the same time, that's the job. It's just awful. Nobody should be in the art world at all. There should be no art.
There should be no art. That solves that problem. All right.
It's done for us.
Thanks, Theo. On that note. Oh, no. Do we have an apology expected or who's sorry now? I do not. I tried again. I'm having a really hard time coming up with these. I feel terrible.
Let's see. I've got plenty because this is like bad boss hypocrisy. Did I ever get I worked in a bookstore when I was like in my early 20s when I first moved to LA, and it was called Dodd's in Long Beach, and it has been closed for a very, very, very long time. And the manager of the store hired me, and it was an independent bookstore, and I had only worked for chain retail bookstores, right? Very different worlds, entirely different worlds, crazy different. And after a while, she hated me with a white hot passion because I was bored as fuck. I just walked around the store and put books in order. I was used to shelving carts of books a day, right?
Yeah.
And here I might have to put 5 books away for the whole 8-hour shift. Wow. It was really just like stand around behind the cash register and wait for somebody to come up with a book and then sell them the book. And not what I was used to at all. And I'm sure that like I probably didn't help things by, I don't know what I did, but I did something to let people know this is boring and it's beneath me. Right. Anyway, so she hated me so much, and I knew she wanted to fire me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to find another job, but I only want to work in a bookstore and I don't have a car. So I need a bookstore that's like off of a bus route and blah, 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 blah. Could I have gotten a job somewhere else? Maybe, probably, sure. Yeah. But whatever. I was stuck in my own little art world, if you will. And so I woke up one morning and I felt terrible. And I noticed I had spots coming out all over me. And so I called in, and it was like, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning, and she was at work. She was always at work. And I said, hey, I can't come in today. I don't feel well. And I've got these spots coming out on me. And she said something along the lines of, I knew that you were a useless employee and awful. And of course you're sick. Have a good day. Right. And so I was really mad, and I went down to the bookstore like 30 minutes later, and I stood in front of her in the back room, and I took my shirt off so that she could see the spots all over my body.
Wow.
Right? And while I was standing there, I broke out in fresh spots. Right?
Wow.
And I said, I am down here to show you that I am actually sick.
Wow.
And this is not normal. I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I don't think I had health insurance. Right.
Wow.
And so whatever for all that drama. Right. And she said, you're right. I didn't think you were sick, and I was wrong, but I don't think you should work here anymore. And I was like, I don't work here anymore. That's why I'm down here, to let you know that I am sick and I'm not going to work for somebody who doesn't believe me when I tell them something about me, right? So then I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, oh, you've got chickenpox. And
oh my God.
I was like, I'm 21. How do I have chickenpox? And he was like, you just probably were never exposed as a child. I don't know what to tell you, but it's chickenpox. And so then, because I'm so caring, right, I was like, oh, fuck, I have chickenpox. They're highly contagious. So I called down to the store to let the staff know, like, hey, I've got chickenpox. I don't work there anymore, but you guys, if you get sick, you'll have chickenpox.
Yeah.
And the manager answered the phone. And so I said, hey, listen, I've been to the free clinic. I saw the doctor. I have chickenpox. And she said, oh no, that's terrible. That means everybody on staff will have chickenpox. And then I was like, no, everybody on staff probably had chickenpox when they were 5 or 6. I didn't. It's highly unusual. And she was like, I can't believe you brought chickenpox into the store. And I was like, I probably caught them in your store, lady. Who do you think I'm hanging around with kids during the day when I'm in my private? No. Anyway, so I'm owed an apology.
You are?
Yes. I will never get it. And it's fine. Right. And And how sad that my story is like, I wanted to work at a bookstore so bad that I put up with all kinds of bullshit to do that. And other people get to hold $20,000 Hermès shopping bags.
Well, it's very on theme. So
Thank you. You're welcome. And so that's all I got.
That's a good story. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we will now say goodbye to our lovely listeners. Thank you all very much for listening this week, as always. And stay cool, cucumbers, and don't trip potato chips.
And bye-bye, don't cry. I'm going to take that, own it, and love it.
See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.